Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated in loving memory of Faraj Kashanian, Alav Shalom Nishmat Faraj Goel Ben Batya. On his 7th Askar, you exemplified and instilled in all your family a love for Israel and pride in being Jewish. You were loved and missed dearly. May we merit all the hostages coming back home now by his children, Nechemia and Miriam Kashanian. For the Refuah Shlema of Chana Bat Simafeg and Eliyahu Shimon Mazaf Fortuné. The week of Kobu was sponsored by David E. Ash in honor of you and your substantial capacity to good today and every day. And finally, a dedication which really brought me to tears. Breakfast in the Class is also dedicated in honor of his beautiful wife, his Eshe Chayil Batsheva Lazar. May she be zochet to mother many beautiful children of Torah, mitzvot and emunah, and may she find the home of her dreams, Mehera v'Yamenu. And in honor of Rabbi Fari, whose words of Torah have inspired us to grow our mitzvot and Torah observance. Your rungs on a ladder derasha and becoming the sin analogy inspired us to kasher our home and more. Thank you, and may we be zochet to say amen live. Her husband, Alex Simone. This is very special. I'm going to bring that home and show that to my wife, Ya'eni. Okay, my friends, let us begin. We read in the beginning of Parashah of Pinchas. Please only answer amen if you're listening to this live. Sorry, Alex. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro. We read in the parasha that Pinhas is someone who actually is excluded from the kihuna. How do we know? Because in the beginning, when God appoints the Kohanim, what does he say? He says, Aaron, kihuna is for you and your children, and for the children that will be born to them from now on. Pinhas was already born. Okay? So therefore, Pinhas is the one Kohen which is excluded from the kihuna that's on the table. What happens? Pinchas does this action that he does in the story of Zimri, and he results in getting in the bracha of Birit Kihunat Olam. He gets Biriti Shalom. He gets a covenant with God, something incredibly special. Now, my friends, I looked in this and I saw something that I think is really, really beautiful. You see, if you think about it, how old is Pinhas in the moment that he kills Zimri? How old is he at this point? Now, I can't say for sure. I don't have a makor. I don't have a source. But I do know that Aharon was made a Kohen after Pinhas was born, which means that now, at the end of their time in the desert, Pinhas is minimally, at what age? Almost 40 years old, or 40 plus years old, okay? He's minimally that age. I don't know as well if there's a big age gap between him and his younger brothers that are Kohanim, but I know that he's at least around 40. When we read about Rabbi Akiva, we always talk about the fact that Rabbi Akiva doesn't learn anything until he's 40 years old. And to me, it's a very interesting thing to contemplate this concept, that both Pinchas and Rabbi Akiva share this idea, that Rabbi Akiva is a person who doesn't know Torah and rises to the stature of a great scholar. Pinchas is the person who was excluded from being a Kohen, and now does something that gets him in the hallowed halls of priesthood. What we learn from here is, even though at 40 years old, it's a person's already approaching, their middle age, already getting to a stage where they're set in their ways, they've set themselves up to be able to grow and to continue everything they've done in their youth. That's not how it has to be. Rabbi Akiva is no one until 40, and then he becomes the great sage. Pinchas becomes a Kohen at that time. But not only does Pinchas become a Kohen, our rabbis tell us, Pinchas zu Eliyahu. Pinchas is actually Eliyahu, which means that he winds up living forever. He visits every Brit Milah. It's an insane thing that we're looking at, that Pinchas merited at that age. I think to myself, I'm 46 now. I spent a lot of time, climbing the ladder of the rabbinate, of studying to be a rabbi, of getting out there in the field, of getting my, some mileage on my shoes, to get to a place. And now I'm a rabbi of a shul, and this is what I do. Imagine I decided today, you know what I would like to do? I'd like to open up a dry cleaners. Imagine, right? I'm going to quit the rabbinate and open a restaurant. It would be a strange thing for me to do. I'm going to go take, a course and become a lawyer. I mean, obviously, sorry, I don't mean that you only need a course to become a lawyer. I'm saying, right? That would be a strange thing for me to do, to pivot and to take an entirely different path. But one of the things that it's important to understand is that in life, it's never too late to make a decision, to improve oneself, to not just change mildly, but to change and to grow radically. I want to share a couple of examples of this idea to really drive home the point that I feel is so imperative during this time of the 3 weeks and the 9 days. There was a soldier who was about to go into Gaza, and he meets this rabbi. The rabbi's there, and he came to give the soldiers a beracha before they went into Gaza. And the soldier says to him, "Listen, Rabbi, I don't really understand what it is that you're doing. I didn't really grow up with this. You're giving me a beracha, like I don't really know. What am I going to do with this blessing? I don't really connect at all to anything Jewish. Does your blessing help me?" Anyway, they're having this whole conversation back and forth, and the rabbi says, "Listen, I want to tell you a story." Guy says, "Okay." He says there was a minister of education in Israel whose name was Zalman Oren. Do you remember him? Back in the beginning, a while ago in the 60s, in Eretz Israel. Anyway, this fellow, he grew up in Russia. He was a communist, then he was a socialist, then he was an atheist, okay? And he became the person who was in charge of the Ministry of Education in Israel. Anyway, this fellow, he gets up to speak, and he's explaining, right, to all these young people, all the young officers at the time in the army. He's explaining to them, he says, you guys see me and you think I'm an atheist, but you should just know that I wasn't always this way. When I was much younger, I went to Cheder, I went to a yeshiva, I knew Tehillim by heart, I knew Mishnayot, I knew Gemara. He says, and in the year 1917, when there was a massive upheaval in Russia, rebellion, I became communist in 1917. And through that, I became an atheist. He says, I don't believe in anything. Not Torah, not mitzvot, not God, nothing. He says, but you should just know, one day in the war came to our city. We ran away to the nearby forest, and all of a sudden, we came under the most unbelievably massive fire. And as the bullets are whistling past me in the air, and I was filled with this incredible fear, I'm running to the far, to try and get safe. And I started screaming. Without even thinking, I started screaming. He says, and what was I screaming? All of a sudden, I started realizing that I was screaming the words of Tehillim. And he says to these soldiers, he says, and you should just know, at that minute, when I was screaming the words of Tehillim, I was so embarrassed. I was embarrassed that here I was, an atheist that abandoned God and abandoned the Torah, and now I'm getting fired at, and what am I screaming without even thinking? I'm screaming the words of Tehillim. He ends the story. No lesson learned, no teshuvah. Just telling you, I'm embarrassed. I knew Tehillim. I said it once. I was embarrassed that I said it. I'm still an atheist. One of the soldiers that was there at the time comes up to this man, Mr. Oren, and he says, you're a real Rasha, you're a real wicked person. He says, I'm a real Rasha. Look, he says, you're not a religious man. No kippah, no tzitzit. Why am I a wicked person? And listen to what the soldier said. I got goosebumps. He said, I grew up in a country that you ran the education. I didn't go to a yeshiva. I didn't go to cheder. You made sure that in the school that I went to, the secular Israeli school that I went to, that I never learned any Tehillim. And I never learned any prayers. He says, I'm a soldier in the army. When you ran, you knew what to scream. But because of you, when they're firing at me, and I want to scream something, and that's happened to me, he said, in war, where I'm desperate for help, and I want to turn to something or someone that's bigger than me. He says, I don't know what to yell, and I don't know who to yell to. You're a wicked man, he said, Mr. Oren, because you stole from me what to scream and who to scream to. I should have been given the choice whether or not I wanted to keep that or not keep that. This rabbi turns to the soldier and he says, and because of this, I came to give you a beracha. And you said, how does it help you? He says, I'm going to teach you what it is that you could scream if you need to scream. And he writes down, takes open a piece of paper, and he writes in big letters, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And he reads it with the soldier. And he tells him, when you say these words, you say it and you cover your eyes and you call out to God. These are words that Jews have said in the worst times, in the best times. They said it in the gas chambers and in the Inquisition. They said it in the pogroms. They said it in times of incredible torture. It should stand by you, and it's there in case you want to shout, in case you need to say, in case you need to reach out for help. Anyway, the soldier's very moved. He gives them a big hug, and they go into war. They go into Gaza. As far as the rabbi knows, that's the end of the story. A while goes by, and the rabbi gets a phone call. They're calling him from Soroka Hospital. What's the problem? Who's in Soroka? The rabbi's thinking his family doesn't live anywhere near Soroka. He said, there's a soldier here who requested you by name, and he's asked you to come visit him. The rabbi's thinking, which soldier did I give my phone number to? Must be that guy. He gets in his car, guns it to Soroka. As he gets to Soroka, he sees an Israeli man pacing back and forth in front of the hospital. He says, are you the rabbi? Are you the rabbi that my son is calling? He said, yes. He says, come quick. He only wants to speak to you. Okay? They drag him up the stairs. They run up the stairs to the guy's room. The man, this soldier, is sitting there in his bed. There's not an ounce, not a piece on his body which is not covered in bandages. Injured from head to toe. And he motions for the rabbi to come close. He's weak. And he says to him, we went in, me and my friends, my pluga, and he said, and we did great work. Baruch Hashem, we were able to do unbelievable work. We killed this, we killed these terrorists, we fought for this, we got this, we conquered that. Unbelievable. He says, and then one day, one afternoon, we got into an alleyway, and they were firing at us, and we knew that we must be close to something important. We took cover, and then suddenly we saw there was 3 terrorists that were standing at the other end of the alleyway, and we started firing at them, and we killed one, and the other 2 managed to escape into a building. I called my 2 friends with me, and I said, "Follow my lead," and we ran into the building, and we saw in the stairwell that they were on the far side of the stairwell behind the stairs, and we were on the other side, and we were firing at close quarters at each other. And it was getting very heated. Finally, he says, I pulled out a grenade, I threw it across the hallway, I told my guys to duck, we ducked, the grenade exploded, and the guy fell, the terrorist fell, and I saw the 2 of them dead. We stood up and came out from our cover, but we didn't realize that there was one more that was already hiding there from before. He says, and it was in like slow motion that I saw him pull the pin and throw a grenade at us. And as it was bouncing close to us and we were all exposed, I knew that I had just sentenced myself and my 2 best friends to death. I didn't know what to do. There was no time to react. It was so close. The only thing that came to my head was to scream. And as soon as I thought to scream, what did I scream? I covered my eyes and I said, Shema Yisrael. He says, but as I covered my eyes, I jerked my hand up to say Shema. My gun, which was on my arm, swung forward, and the butt of my gun hit the grenade coming towards us, and the grenade ricocheted back towards the other side of the hallway. He killed the terrorist, and me and my friends were we were injured badly, but we're going to be completely okay. And I had to call you to tell you that after asking you and telling you what good is your beracha, what good is you told me that when it comes time to scream, this is what you scream, you saved my life and the life of my friends. My friends, the idea that a person says Shema at the end of his life is something that everybody knows. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't know. But I'll tell you what could be. It could be that this soldier said Shema not at the end of his life, but at the end of the life that he was currently living. And that Shema became the beginning of an entirely new life. Because in a moment, sometimes a person does something, sees something, says something that completely alters the trajectory of where they're heading and where they're going in the life that they are living on this earth. Pinchas is excluded. He's cast aside. He's the other. And then something happens, and there's a moment of greatness, and there's a challenge that comes his way. And Pinchas steps forward and does something which ultimately forever changes his direction, his lot, his destiny in this world. My friends, do you know what the kicker is? The kicker is that these moments come that will change our lives forever. The kicker is that we don't know what the moment is going to be before the moment comes. But my friends, if you've seen it with someone in business, you've seen a chance that you had, that you could have invested in something. Every guy used to say, you know, I was supposed to invest in Yahoo. Remember those guys? I was supposed to invest in AOL. You know, they came to me on the IPO for Facebook, right? And the guy didn't invest. For the rest of his life, he thinks about that conversation. My friends, life is filled with those moments. Not all of them are money related. Not all of them are spirituality related. In every arena of your life, you will face a minute like this. There'll be a time when your son or daughter will come to you and they'll be embarrassed, humiliated, but feel like they need to share with their father something that they've done wrong. Your reaction in that minute will change forever the relationship that you have with your child. How did you react? Did you scream, yell, embarrass him? Or did you hug him and say, listen, we have to deal with this. What you did was not okay, but I am right here with you. A reaction like that in that minute, you were koneh, says the Gemara, yesh koneh olamo b'sha'ah echat. There are some people who acquire their whole Gan Eden in 1 minute. A person who screams Shema Yisrael turns his life around. A person who does this incredible mitzvah which requires misirut nefesh. But my friends, I want to share a different understanding. Koneh olamo could mean a person acquires his world. But the word koneh also means to create. In the Amidah we say that God is koneh hakol. He creates everything. Yesh koneh olamo. There are people who create an entirely different world. B'sha'ah echat, in 1 moment. 1 moment of silence. When they had something to say and they didn't answer back, and they just let the person say what they say and they rose above the machloket. 1 moment where you chose to forgive. 1 moment where you overcame the Yetzer Hara to do something dishonest or immoral. You don't know at that moment that that's going to be something that will change your life. But in the fullness of time, how many chances do we get like this sent our way? Pinchas moments, Shema Yisrael moments. And if you think to yourself, that's not me. I'm not that guy. Someone says to you, listen, we're going to start a Gemara class, guys. I want to finish Shas. You think to yourself, you're joking, I never learned the Gemara ever. But you decide, you know what, I'm starting, I'm getting in. That decision is a decision that will change your life. I just read this beautiful note that I'm taking home. It's people who heard a class, who got involved, they decided to kosher their home, change their life. You know when that started? That started one day when someone said, listen to this podcast, Torah State of Mind. We don't know when those moments, you're like, you know what? Follow. You don't know. You don't know when you share a class, or when you introduce someone to a Bet Knesset, or you invite them home for Shabbat, to your house for a Friday night meal. That Friday night invitation for that person was the moment that changed their life forever. Everything happens in a moment. We are not blessed with the prophecy to know which moments are going to be those moments. So what do we have to do? We have to treat every minute, every choice in our life, as if this choice is going to be the most important choice that we'll ever make. And give our very best to every single situation. May Hashem bless us to see growth in every arena of our lives. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chananya.